You are watching Dime a Dozen on MTGO Academy featuring Jason Moore.
Hi folks, and welcome to another installment of Dime a Dozen. This is Jason Moore here with MTGOacademy.com. Now we're going to be jumping into some two-man queues, and what we're looking at here is the deck I'll be piloting. I think this is going to be a deck that is going to be one of my mainstays. And what I mean by that is this Affinity deck is so powerful and has so much potential, so much upside in the Pauper format. There's really no reason for me not to be playing this most of the time. Now, when we talk about Affinity decks, we're talking about some of the most broken, explosive decks in the format that kind of wax and wane in terms of popularity, and there are many variations on this archetype. The variation that I've played for most of my time in Pauper has been what you see right here, which is Rug Affinity. And that basically means we're playing the red, blue, green color combination. This is a little different because most of the Affinity decks happen to be 4 colors or more, and I've decided to break it down to 3. I'm not 100% certain, that is the best way to do it. But it's worked very well for me, and I'm going to continue to play it this way until I have significant reason not to. So, what is an Affinity deck? An Affinity deck is something you may have seen in very old standard formats, maybe in some sort of extended format, but right now it's most popular in Modern as an aggressive deck, and here in Pauper, also aggressive, and both of the decks in both formats have some combo potential. We'll go through that. Basically what this deck relies upon is the Affinity mechanic, which comes from the Mirrodin block, and I'll just highlight one card, Mirror Enforcer, which also has this mechanic. And what this does is, in a deck with Affinity for artifacts, we compile a critical mass of artifacts, and we are able to play a lot of under-costed spells. So this Mirror Enforcer here you see, that's a 4/4 creature, ends up costing something like 2 mana or less. You can often cast this for nothing, for free. Okay, that's pretty broken. It's unfair. So what happens is this deck gets really explosive starts. We play colorless artifacts early on, and then we hit the board with threats. These guys hit super hard. You may see a 4/4 and say, oh, that's not that big of a deal. There are things like Flame Slash that can deal with it, etc., etc. I can chump block it. But the fact of the matter is I can resolve multiples of these in one turn, and they really only need to hit you 2 or 3 times, and you're done. This deck is super fast, super explosive, and it's not just a one-trick pony. It does a number of other things, including drawing a ton of cards. This deck does draw more cards than the average deck, and it has some insane direct damage via Galvanic Blast and Fling, which is the combo kill portion of the deck. So we're going to go through the components here. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time because I have played this deck in the past. This is something that is going to be familiar to a lot of Pauper players. So we're just going to look at starting with the mana base. I'm actually playing 19 lands. This is more lands than most players opt for, but that's because I tend to be more conservative when it comes to land count. I play more lands so that I can resolve my spells. We've got 3 copies, or should be 4. We should be playing 4 copies of Darksteel Citadel. This looks like I've configured this deck incorrectly. Since we don't have any black spells, the Vault of Whispers should actually be a 3 of, and the Darksteel Citadel, which is a more robust land, even though it's colorless, it is indestructible, should be a 4 of. So the deck list for the website portion is going to feature 4, but it appears that for these matches we ended up playing just 3, which is just a mistake, to be honest. So we also have Tree of Tales as a 4 of, Great Furnace, which is the red source. We've got our green source and red source as a 4 of, our blue source, Seat of the Synod, as a 4 of, and then this Vault of Whispers, which doesn't actually cast any specific spell, should be a 3 of, like I said. To supplement that, we have 11 turn 1 colorless artifacts, and they all help fix our colors. We have a singleton chromatic sphere. We've got 4 chromatic stars, and then these guys, again, are very similar, but what is the advantage of playing the star is that you can draw cards off of it when you sacrifice it to a Tog. But they both are intended to fix our colors while cycling and replacing themselves. We've got 3 Springleaf Drum. Most Affinity decks will be playing 4, but I found 3 to be preferred, actually, because you do want 1 every game, but you rarely want more than 1, and you never want to really top deck this late unless you're color screwed for some reason. And 3 Terrarian, which is another variant of these spheres and stars. The only difference is you can't really activate this the turn it comes down, and you need to tap 2 lands to activate it. Our only other 1 mana spell, or I guess 1 mana converted mana cost spell, is Galvanic Blast. And this is just insane. If you think about all the other decks in Pauper, none of them have the capability to do what this does. And that's very common across the board with this deck. A lot of its spells are just effects that we produce at a cheaper rate and at a higher power level than the other decks. So that's the reason I say that this Affinity list should be my mainstay, because it's just superior. When you play Pauper long enough, you start to realize some of the decks just are of a different breed, cut from a different cloth, and this is one of the top tier decks. I think it's one of the best, if not the best decks in the format. Though with the Pauper format, it's a lot like Legacy in the sense that you can play what you want and still have good results, but I think of the highest class, the best performers, that this Affinity deck is where I want to be in the format. Okay, into some of our threats now. Carapace Forager. This is a 4/4 creature for 2 mana. Again, at face value, it doesn't seem like 4/4s are that impressive, but when you have the rate that we have, when you're getting them for the price we're getting them for, it really makes a huge difference. I can't state that enough. A Tog is the biggest creature in the Pauper format. Just let that sink in. This is a 2 mana creature, and it's the biggest creature in the format. Must block, must deal with, and if that weren't bad enough, we can top deck a Fling and just win the game at any point in time. So even games that looks like we're out of, we can assemble this 2-card combo. It's not really a 2-card combo because we have to end up sacking a lot of other permanents, but we can assemble these 2 cards and just steal games. Even if they're at 20 life, it's not unrealistic to fling for whatever it takes. For Frogmites, this is usually a 1 or 0 mana 2/2 creature. Not impressive in combat, but what he does is he adds to our artifact count in a big way and leads to our most explosive starts. This is a precursor to something like Burning Tree Emissary. Thoughtcast. Like Galvanic Blast, no other deck in the format can draw 2 cards for a single mana, nor can they draw 3 when you start sacking Chromatic Spheres and stuff. It's just, like I said, it's in a class all its own. All of these little advantages we have add up in a big way. Now we have a 3/2 flyer for single blue. It does come down a little bit later, but this is really nice. It's positioned well for flying over threats. They have to invest so much double blocks and all kinds of things to stop our other creatures that this guy can fly over. He is more vulnerable to other types of removal, but I really like having a critical mass of threats in this deck. And it doesn't seem like 20 would be a critical mass, but it can be. I mentioned Mirror Enforcer, so I won't really go into him. Let's just go to our sideboard, which is a little bit limited. It's a little less versatile than it probably could be. And I think you'll see that particularly in round 2 and 3. We don't have a lot that we can go to, but the thing is, with a deck like this with so many synergies, you really don't want to board out too many cards. I try to never board out artifacts because that's so integral to what we're doing. So I'm often boarding out some number of either Thoughtcast, Fling, or Galvanic Blast, depending on what the matchup is looking like. Anyway, we have Ancient Grudge for the mirror match, Hydroblast for any type of burn deck, goblin deck. We can also bring in some number for the mirror. We have Krark-Clan Shaman, which is intended to stop hexproof, but can also stop a number of creature decks that are basically setting themselves up on the ground. We have Pyroblast here for Delver. We have Raze, which, funnily enough, we end up playing against, well, I'll not spoil anything, but these typically want to come up against Tron or perhaps Esper Familiars, which also is pretty dedicated to generating some land synergies. And then a Singleton Serene Heart. This is specifically for hexproof. So we're going to take Rug Affinity here into these Pauper 2-mans, and I hope you enjoy the matches. I definitely enjoyed playing them. So if you have any feedback on this list, aside from this obvious flub with the Darksteel Citadel, please let me know. And please remember to comment and let me know what you guys think. So this is Jason Moore here with MTGO Academy signing off here at Dime a Dozen. Thanks.